Hello, Ryan Garland. I am your host of The Paradigm Shift. I cannot wait to expose the true inner depths of institutional wealth building and how to dig deep into real estate investing. Okay, everybody, Ryan Garland here, founder and chairman of Paradyme. Thank you so very much for joining today. As you know, I always say this, I'm excited to bring on two of the most powerful hitters for Paradyme. These are my architects, and the idea for today is to share with you a little bit more of a deeper dive in what it takes to do and plan and design a project in real estate to be able to go out to investors, go out to banks, institutions, private equity, private credit, family office, to be able to successfully raise the capital that's needed to be able to build and develop these projects. And there's no shortage in the volatility of the market and the conversation we can go into. But really, at the end of the day, what people are needing is clarity and transparency to be able to understand that we know what we're getting ourselves into. And so ultimately, really being able to articulate to your clients, your investors, how these things are designed, the planning that it takes to get in there, the budgeting that it takes. I mean, obviously we can dive into construction concerns and costs and tariffs, and the list goes on. But when you have groups that have ridden these waves for many, many years, I'm not trying to say our Mr. Gray Hair guy over here has been through it a lot. He looks younger, by the way, than he really is. I have to tell you, he's one hell of a stud when you see him in person. But, we've all been through it, right? And that, at the end of the day, that's what people want to see. So when you look at the combined experience of these two gentlemen, along with myself, it really allows you to feel more comfortable about how you need to navigate the market. But again, also present a good presentation for people for consideration to get involved. So I am going to show a quick video, and what we'll do is we'll just kind of open up the gates for Stephen. We'll start with you. Just to talk a little bit about your background. And then this video, guys, is really our animation video of the barn caves overall. So for those of you that haven't seen this yet, I think you'll appreciate the design work that it went into just to kind of get this animation out, because ultimately this is what it will, for the most part, look like, except for the gym. We are going to have a little bit of a different elevation. We do actually have a parking structure. The site isn't as flat as this, but talking to artists on how the site's supposed to look is almost impossible to get these guys to really create the exact look of what the project will be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go in between these gentlemen as they talk about, the design of this project. I'm going to stop in between that and then talk about how we are taking this and then going to market and raising capital and then implementing transparency for people. So again, that's the whole point to this webinar today. So here we go, guys. And then Stephen, I'll go ahead and open it up to you, my friend, and please share a little bit about your background, and that would be absolutely killer.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here, Ryan. I'm enjoying the stage with both Ryan and Rob. Rob's ideas that went into the foundational framework of the barn caves are kind of critical to this whole thing, and we'll get into those in detail. But Stephen Biegel, architect, it's nice to be here. 46 years doing this. It's a really hard thing to admit. 46 years doing it. One of my projects that has been broadcast by Paradyme is the Pentagon renovation. So from 1996 to 2001, I was in charge of the Pentagon, which was a major undertaking. And I can go into all kinds of details about what the Corps of Engineers does and what the Department of Defense does, but I'll forego that. What's important here are the innovations that we have included in the barn cave design and in the gym. These are, really cutting edge technologies. We have taken technologies from other industries, from fire suppression, from the types of glass, from siding details, and we have incorporated them into what is a fairly simple concept. The barn cave conceptually is simple. It's a box, but it's a very special box. It frames out to out. It bears out to out. It tries to free up as much open space in the center as can be in a 28 by 76 module. And the idea is that the interior walls are flexible. So anybody who invests in a barn cave gets the lower level for all the toys and gets the upper level with a very flexible frame. to relocate walls and specialize the construction. So as we go through this, you're going to see that things like glass floor panels that will allow you to look down from the living level into the lower level, which is an interesting thing because normally there's a fire separation of 1 hour between anything containing fuel and the living space above. We solved that problem. We have found the right formula for interior views of your lower level. The upper level is flexible. The walls can move. Your framing is out to out, 28 feet wide. Interior walls can move. So fire suppression systems, which are critical to this kind of structure where you have fuel inside a building, the fire suppression system is robotic. It senses where the smoke is coming from. It senses where the problem is, and it rotates around and directly hits the target with whatever it needs to go, whether it's water or halon or whatever. So then pneumatic elevators, we have those involved here where the vertical circulation in the form of an elevator is no longer needing to have a hoist bar or a hydraulic pump. It's pneumatic, so it's a vacuum system. So those are the kinds of ideas that we've incorporated into the barn caves. Even the flooring system, we've modularized the flooring system to include a polycarbonate material that allows us to go with a specific size, say 4x12, and you place the floor panels into the floor system in a very methodical way, but it's polycarbonate, and it doesn't weigh very much. It's lightweight, and it's not sophisticated, but it's intended to be simple so that we can systematize the entire construction system. And with that, jump in, Rob, talk about you and yours.
Hold on, before we do, if everyone's looking at the video, hold on 1 second, Rob, I'll give you the floor. Sorry. If everybody's watching the video, what the whole point was for that part of the video is to show where the site is as far as the barn caves, according to the mall, where you have 730,000 square feet of retail. The reason why it's always about location, and then if you guys were looking at the video across the way there, you'll see that there was actually a airport, and there's a lot of development up in the area, and Rob was going to tell you about all that development that's going on in the area. However, the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because when you're working with institutions or investors, what you were trying to identify is future growth and demand. And ultimately, that's the most important. Live, work, play. Let's say a lot of the questions that I get are, what happens if the market were to crash, or depending on the elections, or, cost of living still high, interest rates, the list kind of goes on. Well, if you're looking at areas where it's anchored by a grocery store, you got Walmart there, it's just around the corner, your cost of living can go down. And there's a lot of other different features, but these are the things that, a lot of investors and institutions are going to look at when you're, in essence, designing your capital stack. For example, those of you that know, Paradyme Storage is right next door to this. It's 225,000 square feet. I am, in fact, in my office at that project. And the idea to highlight these things is because we are right now actively working with the head of private credit at JP Morgan to give us a $100 million line of credit to build these projects throughout the country. But before you do that, you guys can see the sophistication and the planning that it takes to be able to get this job done. When you're working with a large institution, they're going to have their own analyst and their construction analyst, and they're going to want to know what it is we're doing and how we're building these things. And they're going to want to see the resumes behind the people that are designing it. And what you need to do to narrow down your budget, because once you have your construction financing, you're not going to go back to the lender and say, "Oh, we're way over budget." And if that's the case, you or the investors have to come out of your LP partners have to come out of out of pocket with that capital. So now you're doing capital calls and kind of creating some strain on your clients and your investors. And that's what you're trying to hedge against, but also stay on budget and timelines. So really it's very, very important that you are planning your development according to exactly all the stuff that Stephen brought up, because you have approvals that are required. Again, firewalls, all the fire suppression, all of these things really matter before you can get approvals with the city. And that's one of the reasons why Rob's going to be talking here in a second. But those are the things that you have to, if you're in my shoes, you have to pull together, and all those stars have to align before you can really go to market to start raising the capital, because without knowing your numbers, you're in essence just throwing stuff up in the air. So you really need to have the ability to pull this together. So with that said, sorry to break that up, but Rob, go ahead, buddy. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how good your head looks today.
Thanks, buddy.
You see, nice and shiny. You look great, buddy. I just want to let you know.
It's obviously my pleasure to be here as always. Sharing the stage with Ryan and Stephen is always a learning experience for me, as well as long as I've been in this business. So my name is Rob Sampson with Salberg Associates. I've been in vice president for 7 years, been with the company for 26 years in Lake Havasu City. It's I had my family in town here this past weekend, and I took them around, and at 47 years old, I took them around to show them all the projects that we did. And I'll be honest with you, it's humbling at times just to see how many things we've been able to accomplish in the area, and being able to do so. A lot of the stuff that we looked at when we were touring around was on the north side of town near Paradyme Storage, and starting with Paradyme Storage. That's where Ryan and myself came to know each other, and we put together a successful storage complex. But the one thing that we kept hearing about in these storage complexes, I mean, Eric Gedalia from Gedalia Real Estate had called us a couple of times saying, Rob, these guys really want to put a 1-bedroom unit in these storage units. Like, can we do it? And I kept have to tell them no. And, knowing how powerful Eric is, I always hate to be the bearer of bad news with him for fear that he'll go to someone else that may tell him the same thing. So we kept telling him that, and this project kind of spurred from that conversation, as there was available real estate adjacent to Paradyme Storage, so they already had familiarity with the location, and it turned into, well, what if we did a big storage unit and just added some residential on top? Is there a market for this? And I don't mean to speak on behalf of Eric, but he'll tell you there was, and there's been a lot of interest. I know you guys have been here sending out information on a daily basis regarding these things. So the next challenge that we ended up with is, how do we one, start this project? Two, how do we take something that's really a good idea and turn it into a great idea? And that's where Stephen Biegel comes in, and he's going to help this thing go nationwide. I know, Ryan, you'll talk a little bit about that as we go along, but it has been exciting to be a part of where this is going. And we just received our approvals from City Council for both the gym and the barn caves on March 11th, and it was unanimous. And it's because the city has great vision, much like the ownership has great vision. This project is going forward, and it is an unstoppable machine right now, which is great to be a part of.
Rob, that's the perfect lead into the idea of systematizing the barn caves. We've talked for many months now, you and I and Ryan, we've gone back and forth on how to simplify the construction techniques that go into this. It is a box. I mean, there's no question about it. It's just a different kind of a box. It's a box that you live in. It's a box you keep your toys in. And if you can live in the same box that you keep your toys in, then you're money ahead, particularly in coastal regions and in places where you want to be secluded, and in places where you want to enjoy your toys and your lifestyle. And it's really bringing about a different lifestyle. So the systematization of this entire, idea is unique. And we've set it up in such a way where we hope that in the future you can, basically order your package. I mean, you can order it like General Motors. When you order your automobile, you can order your barn cave and have it delivered. And it's Tinker Toys. You set it up and you floor it and you side it and you go, as flexible as you want it to be in terms of your lifestyle inside.
Now, one thing that you'll see too is that, like, a lot of these houses that you'll see that are prefabricated is not really a new concept. but everything is on a smaller scale, and nothing has the power that this development has. You'll never see a prefabricated garage that's being built. You'll always see a smaller home that can be fit on a couple of trucks and brought out, and they lack character, and a lot of times they lack sophistication. And I think sophistication, Stephen, you nailed that earlier at the beginning of the presentation. That's what this really is all about.
You know, let me kind of go back into this. This was perfect, guys. So going back to the capital stack hat, right? So kind of talking about, you know, the volatility in the market. You know, a lot of people were kind of concerned and waiting to see who was going to take the election. Still to this moment, we still haven't seen a lot of the inflation, the cost of living coming down yet, along with, you know, hard costs and construction and so forth. So the idea going into this was plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? So how do we create a business model that will sustain any type of market adjustments? And I can go into, I think I've gone into multiple podcasts in regards to my experience in 2008, but I lost everything. And I'm at that point now in my life where I'd rather be a little more conservative. So we looked at this from a standpoint of how can we get government contracts? How can we get, you know, certain support from cities to be able to build these? How can we keep our costs down where they're unbelievably desirable, but they're probably more on the attainable side than other homes in the area, but still have all the features, if not maybe more amenities. Let's talk about insurance problems with stick-built properties. I mean, I can piggyback off a conversation all day long about State Farm and all the insurance companies leaving California. I mean, it's what, and I'll give you a quick background. When I moved my headquarters to Nashville in 21, during the pandemic, we came out of California. What was happening, I still manage a $100 million debt fund. So for those of you that don't know me, where I cut my teeth was actually in private lending, construction finance. So I'm looking at things from two different perspectives and how we create this model. But what was happening is the technology in steel buildings were becoming, you know, just more advanced. And so people were coming to me for ground up construction for barn dominiums, but they're really just single family homes. But when you're looking at, as for everybody that has ever gotten a mortgage, you know, before the lender casts the loan, you have to have an insurance policy. We were on every loan that we ever wrote, we had to get that binder before we funded the loan. And we were comparing apples to apples in regards to square footage, area, location, what have you, on a barn dominium metal steel built property compared to a regular stick built home. The insurance policy was significantly lower. So this has been a model moving forward for a long time. This isn't just anything new. So going into it, we were thinking about, okay, well, we're out here in Lake Havasu, and Rob's going to touch on this in regards to labor problems. How can we create a way where we have less trades per project? We can build faster, because while we're in essence doing all of our horizontal improvements, we're having the building being cut and built somewhere else. So now it goes on site and we erect these buildings, and we're cutting our timeline. So even though the material cost may be a little higher, we can make it up with trades, labor, and speed. And ultimately, we can try to provide the cost savings back over to the end user, thinking forward about insurance and so forth, trying to keep those costs down for your monthly net. So those are the things that we want to look at. So again, knowing that from a design beginning blank slate, how do we create something that'll give us sustainability as a firm, open up doors for investors, have a well-running oiled business. Now it's time to bring in the sophistication, knowing where the world's going. And here we go. So I won't go much farther onto that. So Stephen, did you want to touch on anything else, or do you want to go ahead and go into the next?
Let's go into the 40 by 90 design and pull up those renderings and those diagrams. So here you see the example. This is the prototype. So this is the first of a series. There's a smaller prototype coming up, which is 28 by 76. But here is the prototype design for the 40 by 90 barn cave. And it's an enormous structure. So if we go from here, the rendering, to the floor plans, you'll see some of the technology that we've already discussed in terms of, you know, the view panels, the glass floor panels, the pneumatic elevator. You'll see those if we can go to the next frame. There you go. So these are our floor plans like you would see in any design, but what is unique here is the opportunity to live above the vehicles and the special things that you've struggled to achieve, and you've achieved. You have your toys. and it's all inclusive. The stair tower comes up. The elevator tower is shown. It can be a pneumatic elevator. The way we've designed them, they're pneumatic. It can be a traction elevator with a hoist bar, or it can be a hydraulic elevator with a piston. So any of that will work here, but it's a very flexible space. This is a 3-bedroom level. This is a large floor plan. 40 by 90 is large. So you have 3 bedrooms on the main level, the main living level, and the master suite above is ginormous, luxurious. It offers the opportunity for private living above with a bathroom that's a major investment in that bathroom. So this is the high end of the barn cave. This is the 40 by 90. The investment opportunity in the 28s by 76 they're going to be scaled down. But the idea here, we go big first and design the structural system first, and then scaling it down is easier, and it becomes much more conventional as we scale it down. So that's, let's go to the elevations on the next page. There you go. You see what we're talking about. Some of the siding panels here are metal siding, conventional metal siding. Some of it is what we have been referring to as Nichiha. I mean, it is a brand name, even though Nichiha comes from Japan. The actual production of the material is here in Macon, Georgia. So this is all domestic made material. Everything we're showing here is made in the USA. So Nichiha products are inert. It's cementitious. It's a fiber cement board that is used to achieve that wood tone that you're seeing that looks like cedar. The railing systems and the balcony systems, they're not concrete. They are open. We're trying to be lightweight and sophisticated in the sense that we want the rain to come through, and the railing systems are perforated metal for the most part, and that's the idea. Investing in glass railing systems, although that can happen, is expensive. So we're keeping it fairly inexpensive by going with perforated metal in both the balcony platforms and the rail.
Stephen, one more thing. So for those of you, thank you for that. The takeaway too for this here, guys, when you heard him say that the manufacturing of this product is here in Michigan, I think some of that probably got your ears to pop up with all the things that are going on politically and tariffs and so forth. So these are conversations that we have literally on a daily basis with our team. Where can we get the product here? How can we not keep our costs down? How can we keep our timelines the same? Those are the things that I want you guys to pay attention to, because these are the most common questions because it's relevant. On top of that, what we are doing, if some of you have caught on, we're also building this and manufacturing this in a way where you can go more luxury, or you can keep your costs down and try to do it more on a high dense, kind of like what we're going to do with the barn caves here in Lake Havasu, but a little more cost effective, and try to pawn that off to savings for your end user. So by being able to go big first, we're going to get the kinks out and then be able to, in essence, manufacture these at a speed nobody's seen before. Now, last thing that I'll add to this component is the manufacturing side. What we're doing here locally is we have a manufacturer that's helping us with all of our structural steel. So all of our manufacturing of most of the structural will be right here in Lake Havasu. So it's all under one umbrella in essence. That's going to help us with timelines. Now, when I went back and said, originally, we're looking at a line of credit for JP Morgan, not just to build these, for our own projects, but we can get to a point where we white label this product and open the doors for other developers across the country to buy these buildings from us and then pop them up on their own sites. So this model isn't just for the barn caves here. We're thinking much larger picture. And really what's happened to open those doors was the amount of interest we've received since we've even started talking about this product here in Lake Havasu. It's gone across the country. I have a group out of Colorado that wants to order 720 units of these from us, which is a $40 million receivable. So going in and obtaining a line of credit at that size is much easier when you already have well-known builders that are, in some cases, are nationally known builders that are going to us going, hey, you're onto something. Can we sit down and talk? And then obviously bringing in the pedigree with Stephen and Rob, that really adds to the fire. So, I want you guys to think really big picture when you're going out to raise the capital. You need to have a much further forecast of planning, because that means that the heart going into it on something like this, there's a lot more into it, because we're all looking at a much larger play here. So, okay, sorry, I'll move on to that. Rob, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, one thing that's important to note is Stephen had mentioned it a little bit earlier in the project and the webinar, is that this is going to be designed almost like if you're buying a luxury vehicle. You could go onto the customizer and you can pick your finishes. You'll see in what's depicted on the screen, you've got some brown color tone, which is the Nichihara panel, and you've got some of the metal panel. Those can be customized where you'd like them on the building. So you could really make this a really personalized project as well.
And that's exactly right. So the slides that are now up, these are the glass floor panels that allow you to basically walk across the top of your vehicles and look down and admire them and show people. It's an interesting concept to be able to view on the lower level. It allows natural light to come in through the windows and penetrate the floor, so you save money on artificial lighting. It's just one of the added benefits here. And the slide prior, to back up one slide, these are the pneumatic elevators. I mean, these are vacuum-assisted elevators. They are, in fact, large enough to get wheelchairs on for ADA compliance. They're large enough, in fact, to get gurneys on if you had to go there on the largest units. But this is a vacuum system. So you have a series of pumps. They're located on the top of the building, and it allows you to get on, push a button, and silently go up floor to floor. In this case, with the 40 by 90, it's a 3-story, 3-stop deal. But you can get on the elevator and enjoy the ride with no noise and no friction. That's different than what we experience in a normal office building or in a normal residence where you have an elevator. So then, going forward, back to the glass floors and then to the next slide. Let's go beyond there. So here's the Smart Connect fire sprinkler system, where the sprinkler that would be located on all floors, but predominantly on the lower level. If there happens to be a fire event, if there happens to be smoke that is detected, this thing rotates around, identifies it, senses it, and puts it out. So you don't end up sprinkling the entire house and ruining your entire, investment. You end up, focusing the fire suppression where it belongs. And then you see the McNichol plank system on the right. This is the lightest weight system that we could find that's commercially available without inventing our own, but it's the lightest weight material that we could find for modularizing the floor plates. So you lay these in between a 12 by 12 system. These are planks, and then you can put a wood floor over it, or you can put a concrete floor over it, or you can put some sort of vinyl floor over it, and it allows you to have the lightest weight structural support system for the floor. And it even goes out to the balcony, where you can have the open grating, the open grate balcony, and the punched railing system, as opposed to a glass railing system. So you end up with a metal punched railing system. So those are the ideas that are being incorporated into the barn caves, and they are as simple as we can make it, but also as fun as we can make it.
So I have to laugh a little bit about our questions, because Mr. Chris over here, which is one of our clients and investors, he's a firefighter, and he's over here going, well, I know a thing or two about fire, if any of you guys are looking at the questions. But it's true. He said the water will travel through the house anyways if the whole thing's inflamed, dude. Remember, you have he's talking about the main lower level, which you have all of your fuel and RVs and so forth. And I'm not trying to sell you on anything, because you're Mr. Firefighter. So, but the idea is to try to get it when it's the getting's good early on. That's the whole point to that technology. So hopefully if something were to pop off, or you would say, which is really common, you have let's take a trickle charger or something that kind of catches fire and it identifies that it's on it right away. You know, that type of stuff's really the idea. And then Robert, I already knew you'd be chiming in. He wants to put this on his Harley Davidson. Anyway, I want mine all done in Harley Davidson. I think you probably could. You could probably customize and fabricate maybe a cover for it or something. I think that would be kind of cool. So, all right. So let's open up any more questions for anybody else. And then if not, then we're going to tee off a little bit more. I'll ask these gentlemen some questions, and then maybe that'll make you guys think a little bit more on how to ask, maybe a little further from there. But with that said, here's kind of, you know, a little bit more color on my end. Again, kind of coming from the operator side, exit side. How are we going to sell these barn caves? You know, I think all of that's really important. Clearly, because we don't make money until we sell them, and we got to be able to build demand. So, and I'm going to let Rob kind of tee off on this because he's so integrated with the city and the community much more than I am. And he'll just kind of give you an idea of the demand for these things. And it's even, you know, prior to me reaching out to him, he was already working with other clients that really wanted to design barn dominiums. So this is really kind of a trend and movement that, you know, it's just black and white. You can see it everywhere. And even Home Depot, I think you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or something and buy a building for $30,000 and pop them up, and it's a little barn dominium now. So it's pretty wild. So here's, you know, I think you guys, some of you, I know a lot of you guys are new here, but I'm going to just kind of share real quickly. You know, one of the things that happened when we were going into the financial modeling of this project was, you know, when you build something, you build a community of residential here in Lake Havasu, due to the heat, you have to have a pool. And obviously our lot lines, this is a smaller, you know, product, a lot more dense as far as the homes are a lot closer. You don't have much of a backyard. So therefore you don't have a room for a pool. So we wanted to create a community center, which was desirable, where people want to go and be there every weekend because they have their friends there and it's really fun. So when we were looking at the design of the pool and the little community center, we quickly realized two things. One, the community center really doesn't have any value. And two, the HOA cost to maintain that pool, the E&O, the community center was pretty high. And we didn't want to pawn those HOAs back over to, or the cost over to of the HOAs over to our unit owners. We're here in Lake Havasu because it's so, you know, this is a second home community. A lot of people are focused on, you know, their overhead. You have a lot, baby boomers is the number one buyers here. You know, they're in this, what I call balling on a budget, right? They're on fixed income. They really try to keep their costs down, but have that great lifestyle. So HOAs, even for here in this project, we're the cheapest in the area, and we have millionaires buying these things because the HOAs are so cheap. So even though, you know, it's ironic because they do well, they still are concerned, you know, of what those maintenance costs are. And I really have to agree with that. So with that, what happened was, is we looked at that community center and go, okay, for us to build something that is somewhat desirable, a little fitness center, pool, what have you, that building has no value if it's sitting inside the residential community on one parcel. It's really just an amenity for that residential. So as I, again, was modeling it, I go, well, man, I wish I could just make this gym a little bit bigger, open it up to the public. And one thing out here in Lake Havasu is the gyms out here are just not really up to standard or up to par. You know, if you come from any other city in the country, for the most part, you're probably going to have a little bit better of a product than what's already existing here. And I say that respectfully for the other owners, but it's just, they haven't been, there's really not enough buildings out here to probably build anything nicer, to be honest with you. So when we looked at it, and I go, well, why don't we build this thing a little bit better, open it up to the community, knowing how much demand for building and development's coming to the north side. By the way, there's 630 acres right on the left-hand side of this here, guys, west of, so we're kind of flying over the water here. But on the left-hand side, west side of the mall, 630 acres just went to auction, I think this week, right, Rob?
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a developer that's buying that. There's a bunch of, you know, home builders out here looking to start building here over the next 5 years. So I think this area is just, I think we're a little bit in front of it. And I think we're our prime as far as timeline. But however, with that said, what's happened is we took the gym and we separated it from the residential. It's all under one investment, guys. But now that building has value because it's open to the public, and commercial real estate is always based on income approach. How much income can that building produce will give its value. Well, kind of poking around and me being out here for 35 years and knowing who's, you know, kind of would join this gym, and with the holistic approach and health and wellness being the fastest growing industry right now in the world due to baby boomers and so forth, healthcare, we realized that it would probably be smarter for us to build something a little bit bigger, a little more grand, and create a launch pad for what the residential product will look like by making the gym the kind of the focal point, and again, that community component. So now we separated that. It generates its own income. Now that building has value. So in my pro forma, I haven't even included what the value of that building is. Everything inside my pro forma is just based on sales of the residential. So ultimately what's happening is that gym could be worth $10 million. It could be worth $7 million. By the time we exit this product, the idea is to see how much money we can generate, but that increases the returns to our investors, which again, I have not put in my pro forma. So we're a lot more conservative than I think most people have realized that we've created with inside our modeling. But what that's done, guys, is it's opened up the doors for other investors, institutions to go, well, that's a brilliant idea. You're keeping the HOAs lower for the residential. You're giving access to your homeowners to the community center. The community center is open to the public, is generating more income. Now the building has value. Now you have a backstop. So let's say, for example, which is one of my biggest questions is, hey, Ryan, let's say I have a sticky feeling that's going to produce a significant amount of income within year 2 or 3. But let's say we go over construction, right? Or we go over budget as an example. Well, the idea is if I had a revenue stream that can kind of help advance maybe some overages on the construction, that'd be killer. So not a lot of developers have figured out how to create capital events like that early on, where it is fruitful enough to be able to have access to a slush fund to keep advancing the project. So therefore, I'm not calling my investors and say, hey, are you sitting down, standing up? I need you to sit down. I need more money, and even though that's inside your investment documents, and I may call you and say, hey, I need it. I'm trying to hedge that risk now, right? And that's really what these banks want to see anyways, and investors. Nobody wants to have you call them and say, hey, Ryan, I'm out here. I'm going to Italy with my grandkids, or I'm going on a cruise, and you're telling me you need more money. I'm waiting for the money to come back to me. I don't want, so it's those things that you really got to be sensitive to, but you want to know where the market's going, where, these sophisticated wealth managers and RIAs, how they're modeling risk now moving forward. And ultimately, it's kind of just ears to the ground and then providing additional data separate to what you find on Census Bureau and allowing people to really see what it is they're getting. And for those of you guys will all laugh, the Census Bureau is always wrong. It's like Zillow on your house. Don't believe in it. If your wife calls you and says, hey, honey, we should sell our house, it's worth this, just don't. Just bring it down like 10%. But anyways, yeah. So I just wanted to share a little bit of color on that. So with that said, Stephen, let me bring this back to you a little bit.
So, the idea here is obvious. I mean, it is as simple as we can make it. The barn cave concept is going to be popular. It's already popular. It is a simple box that we have designed deliberately to be flexible. It covers the toys. It covers the expensive things that you've invested money in. It allows you to maintain them easily, and you live in the same box with those toys. Upper levels, the living levels, the entertainment levels, the fun levels, those are flexible. You modify your walls to your liking. You could almost move the walls around on coasters. You could design your wall system to be on wheels, so you could move your walls around on a floor plate. It is that flexible. The bearing system is out to out, meaning exterior wall to exterior wall. So it allows you probably the most flexibility you could have inside of a box. And Rob, I'm going to toss it to you now to talk about that whole concept, which is really yours. It began with you.
Well, I appreciate that. The one thing that really came up with these barn caves was a lot of our clients were looking to build them and kind of go off the grid, quote unquote. So they were looking at taking prefabricated metal buildings and then building a stick frame house inside of them. And most of them had the same thing in common. Actually, every one of them did. It was a large garage with a small space attached to it that they would live in. And the reason they were all doing it was for cost efficiencies. I mean, they wanted something that, they could build cheaply, quickly. Just as a side note, I went to the internet, much like Ryan just told me not to, but I was able to pull up the 1 in 5 construction workers in the United States right now is over the age of 55. And in Mojave County, I'll challenge you to find me a construction company that doesn't have superintendents that are over 65. It really is just it's a generational construction deal. And I think many of the kids are getting into doing the video game type stuff as opposed to the actual working with their hands. That was another thing it's kind of a side note that I don't mean to get off topic on, but it's one of the reasons I like the barn cave concept of what we're looking at here with this modularization of the concept, because At some point, we're going to have to get more creative because there's only so many people that can build right now. This gives that opportunity. But coming back to the barn cave concept, when we were looking at it, was we have all of this airspace above the barn cave we're not doing anything with. And we obviously, for a lot of good reasons, land is expensive here in Lake Havasu, and Ryan has investors that he needs to stay true to. So the idea was, let's take all that space that we just talked about being on the same level as the barn cave itself, and then just put it on top of the roof of the barn caves, or of the garage, so to speak. And that's how it came to be. Ryan's challenge was, I want something that, this is a second or third home. I want lock and leaf capabilities. I want it to be masculine in nature. I want to see the structure. Let's make a pre-engineered metal building because, hey, you already told me everyone wants to build a pre-engineered metal building and put a residential component inside of it. Let's turn it on its ear and let's go vertical with it. We need the density to get this thing to pencil. And we started with a concept that had 114 units and end up scaling it down to 97. That's just here in Lake Havasu. Now with 720 in Colorado and a number of them all around, density is going to be what speaks. So in order to make this concept work, now we're talking about these almost as if they're throwaway type units in some aspect. Like the 40 by 90 is huge. It's not just huge, it's gargantuanly huge. When we're talking about the barn cave itself that we're talking about in Lake Havasu, these are still nothing to laugh about. This is like 3,000 square feet of living with a loft living that's open of another 1,500 to 1,200 square feet. Where are you going to buy a 4,200 square foot home with a garage that's 3,000 plus square feet? Like, these things are huge. Yes, they're efficient, and yes, that they're being created to build a community on, and also we want to make sure that we can modulate them and send them all over the country, but you're still getting 4,200 square feet of living space in the larger unit.
With two balconies, drive-through garages, elevators.
Yeah, I don't
your own master suite.
This is a big deal. So, but that was where the design concept came from. It was, how do we make sure that we have something that's good? Growing up, and Stephen, I'm sure, has some stories he can tell you about his foray into architecture, but the first thing I noticed when I was growing up was I always thought millionaires lived in loft houses. And that's how this kind of came up, was I always wanted to live in a loft house. So we started thinking about, okay, well, if you can afford like 2 stories of open space, you must be a millionaire. And that's how, like, when I was 12, that's what I was thinking. And honestly, it still kind of holds true because this is designed with a gigantic loft, 2-story open space, plenty of glass, views where you got them. It's really a great product.
My relatable story goes back to when I was in school and trying to be an architect. I always wanted to live in a silo. I grew up on a farm, so we had a big concrete silo. And I used to walk into that silo, which was maybe 24 feet in diameter. It was a big silo. I'd walk in there and I'd look up and I'd see nothing but light at the top. And I always wanted to know what it would be like to put a platform and then another platform and another platform and then dome over the roof and have a skylight at the top. So my vertical orientation of architecture came from a silo on the farm. Now, the barn cave is a rectangular box, but it's the same concept. So now we go vertical with what we can operate on the ground, from lawnmowers to RVs to slingshots and motorcycles, whatever it is that goes on the lower level, we live above it, and it's the same concept. So I've realized my goal.
And it's so cool, guys, because both Stephen and Rob, they have a lot of clients. Stephen's got a couple $1 billion projects that he's getting off the ground. He dominates the space out here, all in Mojave County, not only from homes, but anything with steel buildings. I think they just completely own the space here. So, to be able to have gentlemen that are just this excited about it, and they take my calls all the time, it's pretty cool. We have really a community of people that are just super excited. And I have subs, some of my subs are literally writing checks and investing into the project, and so I think that's, for me as an operator and a business owner, when you have everybody bought in and you have your entire team that are so excited about it, and they see, they're talking to their friends and their family, and they're showing renderings and pictures, and everyone's so excited, and It's just nothing better when you have that type of support. Then you go to the city, and the city's just 7-0 across the board on everything. And you're like, so if you're getting that much support, the likelihood of the investment to go well goes up. Really, now it's our job really to value engineer and execute on the development. That is really, the main point now. And always try to be innovative and ears to the ground. How can we shift? How can we do things? And what's going on in the market and so forth. What really caught our attention the most is the interest. So not only do we have investors that are investing, we have investors that are investing and wanting to own a unit. So what's happened, I think we have 27 out of the 93 or 97 that we have accounted for already of investors that have invested and bought a unit. So what that's doing now is the risk continues to drop because investors are going, I want one of these, so I'll invest now for the development, but then I'll take one at the very end. So if you have investors that are investing and then taking over units at the end, your risk continues to drop because now you have a built-in buyer pool. And then on top of that, we have a group, I think just on and our CRM alone, we have over 500 interested buyers right here locally. We only have 97 of these things. And then we also have, our broker, which everybody knows about, is Eric Adalia. He's number 1 in the city, number 2, I think, in the state, number, I think, 20 in the country. So his group, they did 240 million last year just here in Lake Havasu alone. It's quite a bit. So he's got over 500 people. And then another competitive brokerage calls me and goes, hey, would you guys do co-brokering? And I'm like, why? He goes, because we have a list of over 500 people that want these. So it's pretty wild on the amount of people that want this, but it fits the culture here. And really, it's the garages. I had another guy just buy a garage from me here at Paradyme Storage, and he bought a 28 by 60, and he comes to me and goes, I don't have enough room. I need more room. And the ongoing joke here in the city is you drive by somebody's RV garage in their home, their garage is bigger than their living space, and the toys that are sitting inside their garage is worth more than the house. And that is so true out here. And it's not even necessarily the toys. I mean, you have people store everything you can imagine. You have contractors that need room. You have, it's just, there's so many people that need storage for many reasons. And it's probably one of the most desirable asset classes if you just look at it from an institutional space. So, it seems to hold true to what people are trying to do here. It makes sense across the country. People even storing farm equipment. If you have a little farm and you want to pop up a residential place, you could pop one of these up and then you could store some of your equipment in there. I mean, we're doing it on our spot. So it's stuff like that I think it just, it caters to a much larger group. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. That'll have a good run. So with that said, guys, I am pretty much done on my spill. So if anybody has any more things to say, Rob, I don't know if you want to talk on anything else, but I am pretty much good on my end. So we can start opening up for questions.
Yeah, I don't have anything on my end, Ryan. I think we've covered everything.
I think questions
Okay.
questions would be good at this point.
Okay, let's see. Here we go. Look, here comes Chris. Chris, we'll just jump on the phone. Mr. Fireman over here. Chris, we'll just jump on the phone with me, you, and maybe Stephen or Rob, and we'll talk about it. But he's saying the project's getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, in fact, just to kind of give you guys an idea, we did change the setbacks a little bit. I think we went from 3 foot to 5 foot setbacks. Yeah. So we actually went a little bit bigger. And the units are all a little bit larger too. We wanted something just a little bit more, I hope nobody takes offense, masculine. When you drive into this property and you drive through, like if anybody drives through my storage now, I got 60-foot wide, driveways with 14-foot tall garages. And I have these 3D pop outs that are just catches everybody's attention. It's a really cool design. When you drive through here, it just feels huge. It feels strong. When you have 2 more stories of residential with a pitched roof, it's just so tall. It's huge. And I think it's just this kind of, it's just a very masculine development that I think people really appreciate. And what's even more wild is how many women want these things. There's so many women that go, because they think less maintenance, less overhead. They're the ones really focusing on budgeting for the family. So a lot of the questions I'm getting that is really kind of come down to cost of inefficiency and certain, practices that we're implementing is really kind of from that side. So again, we're implementing the technology from water, fire suppression to solar. I haven't even talked on that yet. And the reason I haven't is because we're still going through the modeling of that. And if we could push that in, then my investors get the limited partnership tax credits. And then the homeowner gets the actual the solar within the purchase, and I'm not increasing the cost of the unit. And it's simply because this is literally, it's a solar field on top. It's 10,000 plus unit, solar panels. So it's much bigger. We're trying to work on some deals and how that would look like from a financial side, and maybe some support from the city and state. But at the end of the day, once I have that all narrowed down, I'll bring it to everyone's attention. But I know it's things like that we're trying to be and continue to be, forward thinking to benefit not only the end users, but our investors and us as well, from a brand and a product that we are really trying to set a tone nationwide. So other than that, I yield back to questions here. Let's see, Chris, thanks. But are you still doing on-site tours next week? Ron, yes, I am. I have a couple more already set up, but you are more than welcome to shoot me a call, email, text, and I will, I'll set you up out here if you want. And I know, by the way, I know a lot of investors that you guys are on. A lot of people are also asking me if they can refer people my way. Absolutely. I mean, obviously referrals are always the best income source for us as far as capital raising. So please do. That you would not be able to reside in the units no, yes, you can absolutely reside. The only thing that we're not doing in not allowing in this area is short-term rentals. So Airbnb. We do not want the Airbnb wild kind of crazy lifestyle that Lake Havasu kind of typically tracks. The reason is a lot of my investors are buying these, and along with my friends are buying them. I don't like that stuff next to my house if I own one. Again, I'm trying to create a brand that's a lot more polished. I don't want that around me, I'll be honest with you. And so even though I know I have had to pass on, investors, because they're like, you're not going to open up the Airbnb, no way. But those investors do not know the Lake Havasu area. So if they were to know the Lake Havasu area, they'll say, no, we don't want Airbnb. Just simply because people's homes are getting beat up. In fact, here at Paradyme Storage, we probably had 7 or 8 buyers sell their homes here in Havasu in 1031 exchange and buying these storage units just for the cash flow, but no maintenance, no headaches, and so on and so forth. So, but yes, you can live in them. We're looking for really what we wanted to do is look at it from a way where it's more attainable, so you can have full-time buyers. But we also know, just given the nature of Lake Havasu, you're going to have kind of the lock and key second home buyers as well. You can do long-term rentals, but we're going to do minimum 6 months. And some of these investors have been pretty smart. They said, well, if you're renting out the unit, can you rent out the storage space too? And I'm like, there you go. So if you look at it from a rental model and you're doing long-term rentals, you can get the returns to look pretty decent, because you can rent out the storage space as if it was a regular storage for boat. And then you obviously have the residential side above it too. Some of the people that said, hey, if I'm going to buy there and live there, I don't really have a boat. I have maybe some jet skis. Can I rent the space out too? Absolutely. If you live out here, you probably have some friend in California that needs a space for a boat. And so you can, rent out a portion of your garage as well and help with your mortgage payment. So those are the things that I think has really opened up the doors to having more buyers as well. And that's ultimately what we want to do, is cast the net as far and wide as we possibly can to be successful, and bringing down our costs, building something that people want. Barn dominiums are trendy. It's a killer design, 3 stories, elevator, big garages. It just seems to fit the world at the moment. So, okay, let's see. Any estimate on air conditioning costs of these? I do have an estimate on it, but I am working with my current trade right now to kind of renegotiate, because he's getting a lot of buying horsepower from us. I ordered $500,000 worth of units right here at Paradyme. And I have 3 other projects going on here as well. So he gets a nice receivable from a private equity firm to go get, with his, what do you call it? His supply house. So we're going to work a deal. So I appreciate the question though. Other than that, guys, I am good. If anybody needs anything, this will be recorded. You can watch this over again. If you want the animation video, that is also on our YouTube. We have other podcasts on there with Stephen and Rob, really kind of talking about the design of this as well, maybe a little bit more in depth. We do have my documentary, how it is that we really came about this, and my relationship with my mother, and how I rebuilt and found her after all these years out in East Tennessee. And I wanted to recalibrate a relationship with her. And the house that I bought out there had an old barn that was built in, I think, 1892 that I saw. And I went in there and remodeled it and built a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house inside of an old barn. And that really kind of kicked off the whole love story of the Barn Cave. So thank you guys all for the support after all this time. Really appreciate it. This, again, will be up for everybody on the platform to watch. And there's a lot of heart here. And I hope you guys see the fruit. So thank you all so very much. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time. I'll follow up with you guys and debrief after this.